Greetings, summoners! If you're a summoner, you should know that we are like ninjas, or knights, or samurais, and we have a code. Yes, the summoner's code. I'm Neutralized Noob, and for those of you who don't already know me, I'm just a League player who's trying to neutralize the inner noob with info, and that's why I create somewhat funny, somewhat informative videos. Today's video is about the Summoner's Code. So, we're gonna read and comment the Summoner's Code. The Summoner's Code has 9 chapters, and each chapter has a quotation that sums up the info presented in that chapter. The first thing that the Summoner's Code is teaching us is that we should support our teams. Here's chapter 1 of the Summoner's Code. Support your team. Teamwork is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. Andrew Carnegie. I just hope I pronounced this name right. While we all carry a diverse set of individual ambitions and expectations into a game of League of Legends, once we hit a field, we are part of a team. Okay, so heads up. If you're looking for a solo game, or you're tired of playing a team-based game, you should take a break from League and play something else, cause League is in every aspect a team-based game. For better or worse, our fates are intertwined with that of our teammates. If they lose, you lose. If you win, they win. Some are uncarryable, I know, but it is a team game nonetheless. Once the game gets into full swing, you have to make a choice between being a positive force for your team or contributing to your own demise. It is very weird that they do not clearly state that you shouldn't aim to lose a game. Being a good team player begins at champion select, so remember not to ban your team's declared champion, to keep in mind your team composition, to help others who might have gotten killed, etc. Be open-minded when considering the needs of your team. If you're the last one to pick, try to fill a niche in your team that hasn't already been filled. If your team lacks AP or a tank, pick that. Unless you're the ADC, then it's GG. If everyone's picked and something stands out as a deficiency in your team composition, try asking for another player to fill the gap. Or change roles to embrace that responsibility yourself. Remember that by taking on a role you don't normally play, you'll learn more about unfamiliar champions and increase your own skill level. Yeah, right, especially in ranked games. Don't do it in ranked games. Once you get in game, try to keep an open line of communication. Warn your teammates if someone is missing from your lane, or if someone is placing them in immediate danger. So, if the apes in your team have zero map awareness, try to spam those pings without being unsupportive. If they're not paying attention to chat, you can always try pinging the map. So, if they have muted both pings and chat, GG! Just remember that one ping is enough. Also, remember that you have to be there to contribute, so don't leave the game or go AFK. And finally, Riot has given a direct order: do not leave the game or go AFK. This must be important. There was no if or try before it. Encourage players who are having trouble. This is a double-sided blade, cause they might interpret your words of encouragement as sarcasm and start flaming. Rather keep radio silence. And congratulate those who are playing well. And most of all, if you're having a bad game, don't take it out on your team. But how about your fates being intertwined? If you're having a bad game, the team must have something to do with it. Nonetheless, you shouldn't blame them for their mistakes, because you probably had your mistakes and they could start blaming you also. Okay, so that was chapter 1 of the Summoner's Code. Let's see chapter 2. Drive constructive feedback. When you confront a problem, you begin to solve it. Rudy Giuliani. I swear these names are a pain to pronounce. Player feedback is an important force in the decision-making process of Riot games. If you want to make your voice heard, taking the time to let us know how you're feeling about a game is a good place to start. When you give feedback, make sure you take a holistic approach. If you only give negative feedback, you may find that the changes you influence detract from what you initially enjoyed. Moreover, people are simply more likely to listen if you present yourself in a calm, well thought out manner. This is actually nice life advice from Riot. Like, have you ever met a person who, even though they told you that you've done something wrong, they said it in a nice way that almost made you feel good? Further on in this chapter of the Summoner's Code, there's some boring shit where Riot basically encourages people to share their feedback in a nice way. That being said, don't be afraid to tell us if you feel strongly and why. Try to be straightforward, specific, and always try to make your feedback direct and concise. For instance, saying something along the lines of, I used to love playing Katarina because her skills give her high mobility in lane, but with the latest nerf to that Lotus, I no longer feel like I have a strong enough presence in teamfights to be viable. I don't think that I'm going to be playing Katarina in the future unless she undergoes some revisions. Is a much better way of expressing your dismay at the patch than beginning with an irate tirade than asking for changes to be reverted or attempting to force an alternate solution. Remember that we're listening and making changes every couple of weeks, so with a little patience, you may find that your issues will work themselves out. Okay, moving on to chapter 3 of the Summoner's Code. Facilitate civil discussion, you uncivilized bastard. To disagree, one doesn't have to be disagreeable. Barry Goldwater. Finally an easy name. Next, Riot writes something like 81 words to just say that they encourage people to share their thoughts with other players, and then 91 more to tell us how to behave gracefully. When you choose to participate in a discussion with the rest of the player base, always try to be receptive to another player's point of view. If you keep an open mind, you'd be surprised what valuable information you can glean from your fellow players. Also, be mindful of how you present your point of view. If a player feels strongly on a subject, don't get caught up trying to have the last word. Just state your side and exit the conversation gracefully rather than give them an opportunity to pick a fight. Moving forward to chapter 4 of the Summoner's Code, because chapter 3 was rather boring. Enjoy yourself, but not at anyone else's expense. Short is the joy that guilty pleasure brings. Euripides. And finally, we have the name of a well-known philosopher. Thanks God, well done, Riot. Making games is our business, so it should come as no surprise that we want you to have a lot of fun. We want you to get excited, to have tension-filled moments, and to celebrate your success. This doesn't mean that we're okay with you ruining anybody else's day. Remember, taking a jab at your friend in the middle of the game is a lot different than making a glib remark at a complete stranger, like duh. Someone who is unfamiliar with what you consider playful may take your comment as an attack and react unfavorably. If two players on a team start fighting, good communication and teamwork become nearly impossible, like duh. Once communication breaks down, the likelihood of victory is drastically diminished. Mr. Obvious Riot. It isn't uncommon for simple, good-natured teasing to spiral out of control into a loss. So do yourself a favor and don't run the risk of sabotaging your own success. Yeah, it's pretty much a matter of how people interpret what's being said. You can't risk your game for that, can you? I think this part is fair enough. And here you have to decide what's more important, your LP or teasing the others. Depends how devilish you are. Straightforward to chapter 5 of the Summoner's Code. Build relationships. Yeah, League is becoming a dating app, but this is not what this is about. No man is an island. John Donne. League of Legends is a team game, and as such, familiarity and rapport with the other competitors with whom you play is going to be a big part of your success. With that in mind, it would behoove you to adopt a cordial demeanor and attempt to make friends. If you have fun playing with another player, make use of the end of game lobby to thank that player for the game and send a friend request. The more friendly players that you have at your disposal, the better your chances are of getting a good friendly game. So you should get people to be at your disposal. Nice, Riot, nice. And let's keep in mind that you can have friendly game unless you play ranked solo duo, then you can get only one friendly person with you. Use the tools at your disposal to try and build a circle of other players of a similar skill level. If you have a relationship with a group of players that you trust, you are much more likely to get good feedback on how you're playing, receive support when learning a new champion, and just have a good time overall. True enough, playing with friends is enjoyable, but beware who you consider your friend. Jumping into chapter 6 of the Summoner's Code. Show humility in victory and grace in defeat. This is the line with which I'm personally the most familiar, probably because it appears a lot in the loading screen. To be humble to superiors is duty, to equals is courtesy, to inferiors is nobility. Benjamin Franklin. Having a great game is one of the biggest joys that League of Legends can bring you. But always bear in mind that when you're relishing that landslide victory, there is someone on the receiving end that is probably ripping their hair out. While it's alright to celebrate, make sure that you keep any gloating or any other mode of self-indulgence out of old chat. Instead, thank your opponents for the game. After all, despite their best efforts, they just made you a very happy person. Moreover, if you've just lost, avoid pointing any fingers or deploying excuses. No blame the jungler, no blame any ape in your team, just think what you could have done better. If there's nothing, it's sad, so watch a replay to figure out what it is. Even if you had a great game, it's not alright to blame your team. You had 5 opponents in that game and seeing as you just lost, chances are that they had something to do with it. We all know that losing can be frustrating, particularly if it's a close game or one that's completely one-sided. But nobody likes a sore loser. Instead, thank your opponents for the game and take a moment at the end of game screen to ask what you could have done better. If you're polite, you might pick up a few pointers that can help you counter your opponent's strategy in the future. Ooh! I never thought about asking my opponents. I will. Let's see how they react. Moving to chapter 7 of the Summoner's Code. Be resolute, not indignant. It is easier to find men who will volunteer to die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. Julius Caesar. Intrinsic to the idea of competition is the notion that, when our pride is on the line, emotions tend to run high. Every person that we encounter is going to carry a different set of circumstances with them into the game. and therefore is going to have a different level of tolerance for frustration. If you end up in a game with an abusive player, don't lower yourself to their level. Instead, politely ask them to calm down. And remember, even if you're having a bad game, quitting or going AFK just ruins the game for the rest of the players. And here's the second time Riot tells that you shouldn't go AFK, or rather, that you mustn't go AFK. If someone's really starting to bother you, the mute and ignore commands are always there to resolve the situation. Cause if someone blames you the moment you just mute them, you won't stay with the curiosity and with the fear that they will blame you continuously even though you can't see, and then you are curious about that, and it's just a vicious circle. You can't get out of it unless you stop caring. But can you stop caring? Good question. And remember, while nobody likes being insulted, it pays to take a moment to consider the circumstances. Remember that this is a competitive game, and more often than not, the other player is just venting their frustration. Try to not take it personally. Everyone has a breaking point and everyone rages sometimes. At some point, you may find yourself in the other person's shoes. And this is the moment where they admit that they expect that everyone will flame at times. Moving to chapter 8 of the Summoner's Code. Leave no newbie behind. Be an opener of doors for such as come after thee. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Again with the nasty names. We all started somewhere, and if we're going to do justice to the people who helped us move up the ladder, we have to start by paying homage to our roots. If you see a player having a bad game, or who clearly doesn't grasp the fundamentals of the genre, try offering some constructive advice. If you do so in a civil and friendly manner, it's likely that they will be receptive. Oftentimes they'll be downright grateful that somebody took the time to let them know how to improve instead of yelling at them. Never get frustrated by an inexperienced player's performance. At some point, you were just as green as they were, even if it was the day that you downloaded the League of Legends client. Have a little patience and try and help the player step up to a level where both of you can enjoy the game. Oh, I remember how people would tell me not to play Draven in rank. Oh, that still happens actually. Even though I'm not that bad, I am Draven. Not Draven, Draven. At the same time, don't be discouraged if they aren't receptive. Some small percentage of players will get hung up on the notion that they don't need anybody's help. And no matter how politely you try to lend a hand, they won't want to hear it. That's no reason to give up on the rest of them. And finally moving on to the last chapter, chapter 9 of the Summoner's Code. Lead by example. Leadership is practiced not so much in words as in attitude and in actions. Harold S. Cannon. Riot, please, what's with these names? If you share our vision of a game where players exercise good sportsmanship, help each other improve and form lasting friendships, you've got to start living the dream before anybody else is willing to do so. It's all well and good to say you're on board for the revolution, but if you don't first make yourself a paragon of model behavior, no one is going to be fooled. Nobody's asking you to be perfect, but we do want you to, whenever possible, strive to uphold the same standards of behavior that you expect everyone else to maintain. So remember, stay positive, remain calm, and keep to the code. This is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the Summoner's Code and thanks for watching this long ass video. Also, good luck climbing. Neutralize noob out.